It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of a bank in formation. Take charge of your financial future with Your Personal Bank. Now here's Ference Toth.
Well, welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show, and I'll tell you what, we've been talking about a lot of great things this week, and I have to admit, one of the things, one of my new clients reached out to me just last week, I guess, and it was kind of funny. He was like, he got a kick out of it because his situation that I was sharing, the discussions that we had and the conclusion he came to, I discussed on the radio. Now, of course, I didn't share any personal information or anything. It's nothing that would identify. But my point I made to him is, it just kind of goes to show you this is real stuff. This is real world. The examples that I share and the things that I talk about in terms of using Your Personal Bank as a tool to enhance your financial situation, to have more money to spend, to reduce your taxes, to create positive arbitrage, and even on earning money on funds you spent or allocated elsewhere, which means you can increase your rate of returns and things like that. These are all real. This is real stuff every day. I'm dealing with people on this every single day, basically. And so, he got a kick out of it that I shared his story. And his story, of course, was an example of one I used in terms of should he buy a car, pay cash for it, finance it, or use the personal bank, which was the best. And if you didn't hear that, I'm going to encourage you to go back, go to yourpersonalbank.com, go back to last week's show, I think it was. I forget the name of which one it was. But, the title will be on there. And the point is, I share stories like this all the time. And I use this myself personally. I use this with our business. I've been doing that for the past 7 years. And that's really the reason why, I was approached with the idea. I didn't seek this out in terms of doing a radio show. Kind of something that fell into my lap. And an opportunity presented itself. And I thought, I've been traveling the country, previously COVID, of course, doing workshops, educating people, doing things like that with investor groups. And my motivation has really been to educate. And let's be real. I mean, I know this from personal experience through working with literally hundreds and hundreds of clients. The last 7 years, I've introduced this concept, this idea to, frankly, probably a couple thousand people at least. Okay. Probably more. I couldn't even tell you. And the reality is we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients. So the thing is, when somebody talks to me about the concept, ask questions, and we meet, maybe they met me through a workshop or heard me on the radio. It's kind of funny. I just had somebody reach out to a couple days ago who they say, I've been listening to you for about the last 5 months. I'm like, really? Wow, that's awesome. And I get that quite often. I've been listening to you the last several months. I find this idea intriguing. I have a few questions. And that's really kind of where we start. And so I'm like, okay, what are your questions? Tell me. You've been listening for several months. So obviously you have a pretty good base of information. Our goal, of course, is to educate, of course. And I enjoy doing that, obviously. Where are you at? What's going on? And what are you trying to accomplish? And that's really kind of where we start. There's not it's not a heavy sales pitch or anything like that, obviously. It's really, again, focused on education and then looking at your situation and seeing where the personal bank, how it can enhance or improve, your financial situation. And I get a couple of responses when I do meet with folks, or, again, it's pretty much, since March, it's been 100% online almost, or by phone. By the way, this isn't anything new for me because, again, the last 5-6 years now, I guess, I've been speaking around the country to different investor groups. And so obviously the one-on-ones, when I talk to people, it's been by computer, Zoom, GoToMeeting, stuff like that, phone. So in fact, in 2019, I think 85% of my client meetings were online. So this isn't, COVID didn't change the approach of how we do things. Really what COVID did for our business, for myself, is really made it much more mainstream in terms of meeting with somebody, remotely. So which is it's actually worked out really well because it's more efficient. So anyway, my point, I'm getting off on a tangent here, and I apologize. The thing is, really a couple things come up when we're talking to folks individually. One is there's a surprise in terms of, wow, I never really thought about where I'll start sharing some solutions. And like I tell people all the time, look, I'm going to start thinking out loud here a little bit. Don't hold us to anything here. Just going to brainstorm a little bit here. What if we did this, or what if have you considered that, or what if we reallocated funds from here to there and did accomplish it? And I do that all the time. And it's funny how, again, with experience of 20 plus years as a financial advisor, I've been an entrepreneur for close to 30 years now. It's amazing. I started right out of college. I started young. Owning a retail business, owning a service company, owning a contracting business, of course, being chairman of the board of a bank, in the process of starting a bank. I've owned the financial agency now for 16 years, I should say. You get a lot of experience, a lot of entrepreneurial, a lot of financial experience, just real life stuff, right? And then working with, hundreds, thousands of clients, frankly, in my career. And so it's like, have you thought about this? Or what if we did that? And the response I get invariably, in most cases, is really, wow, I never thought that would, that makes a lot of sense. Never considered that. So the changes that we're able to make, the improvements, and again, my goal is not to change somebody's lifestyle. It's not like you're going to have less money to spend or use or make. My goal is to make it as seamless as possible. And the reality is, the more seamless we can make it, the less impact to your life, the more likely you're going to succeed at this. I get that. And so without making really any change hardly at all, we just reallocate funds from here to there. The amount you have to live on, to spend, all that stuff's the same as before, if not more. And yet your financial situation improves. You have more money to spend. You pay less taxes. You get positive arbitrage, all these different things. People are like, wow, that's awesome. That's great. And they get excited. It's a positive direction. Okay? So moving forward, and if you're already moving forward more efficiently, faster. I mean, I always say there's two ways to make more money. You can make more. You can also spend less. And by the way, paying less in taxes is one of the best ways to spend less. Let's be real. And that's often easily done, frankly, just by some small reallocations of things. Anyway, that's the biggest response I get, And then the other one, of course, leads to the question I get, the number one question. I talked about this in Tuesday's show. So again, if you missed it, I'm going to encourage you to go to yourpersonalbank.com and check it out. Is why don't more financial advisors, recommend this? And the title of this article, like I said, why don't more financial advisors sell life insurance? Now realize our focus here is really about growing cash, access to the funds, getting tax benefits, getting positive arbitrage through the bank line of credit when we access the funds. So our money's still working for us. We're still growing our money, even though we've allocated them elsewhere to pay bills, pay debt, or invest in other things. But the response, I thought was awesome. We're posting this on our website, yourpersonalbank.com. I encourage you to check it out. And if you missed the show, check it out. It really does a great job explaining the reasons why. It has to do with expertise, familiarity, comfort level, those kinds of things. And like I kind of finished the show off Tuesday was, look, maybe one of the best analogies I can give you is this. If you've ever been to a doctor, you go to your primary care physician, and your doc suspects that there may be something more serious. You might have something more serious medical issue that's beyond their expertise, right? What's the first thing the doc does? They refer you to a specialist. I mean, we all know that. That's common practice in the medical world. Unfortunately, in the financial and legal worlds and those kinds of things, tax world, if your CPA is not a business expert CPA, for example, it's not common that they're going to refer you to one who is. It's kind of the same thing in the financial world. If their level of expertise is in one area, let's say manage funds or things like that, and it gets into a situation where some tax-free income could make sense, positive arbitrage would make sense, right? It's not their expertise, not their comfort zone. It's unlikely, though, unfortunately, that they're going to refer you to a specialist. And that's what I am. I tell people this all the time. Sometimes, one of the questions you can ask any financial advisor or any advisor, let's face it, is, when I talk to an attorney for legal advice, one of the first questions I ask them is, what's your area of expertise? And if somebody starts to tell me everything, well, that tells me they're a general practitioner. They can handle the basics, simple things. But when it gets into something a little more specialized, I recognize immediately I need a specialist. You should ask those same questions too of your legal or tax or financial advisor. What's your level? What's your area of expertise? And I'm going to talk to you about that in the next segment in terms of my area of expertise and what I can do in terms of helping you. And I do work with many financial advisors and helping them do the same thing. Stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back. We're really talking about advisors' area of expertise today. And, why am I talking about this? Well, it's really a very important issue and a very important question. It gets to be a little sensitive sometimes with people, and they get a little, worked up about it. But here's the reality. From your standpoint, as a consumer, as a client, one of the best questions that you can ask when you're working with somebody and they're giving you advice, and by the way, this would apply whether it's financial advice, tax advice, legal advice, it doesn't really matter. One of the best questions you can ask is this. It's really quite simple. What is your level of expertise? Or I shouldn't say this. What is your area of expertise? Apologize. What is your area of expertise? Now, why am I saying this? See, it's little known, but once you start to think about it, you realize, it should be common knowledge. See, in the medical industry, it's pretty common. We all know if we go see our family practitioner, our family physician, and a more serious or a suspected health issues coming up, something that's beyond the general family physician's expertise level, what do? Almost invariably in the medical field, they're going to recommend you to a specialist, aren't they? Because we all understand the medical field is so complicated, no one can be an expert in everything. That's impossible. It's just too much. You have your general practitioners, you have your family doctor, right? Your primary care physician, whatever. And they're your generalist. They can handle most of the basic, simple things. But when it gets into the more complicated stuff, of course, then you get into the area of specialists. Folks, the legal industry, the financial industry, the tax industry is no different. If somebody tells you they're a tax planner, they're a financial planner, they're a legal, they're an attorney, whatever, and they tell you they're kind of good at everything, what that's telling you right there, it's impossible to be great at everything. All of those areas are too complicated for one person. There's not enough hours in the day. Let's be real. That person is a generalist. Now, if you're dealing with basic, simple things, sure, that's no problem. Just like your family physician, you got a cold or flu or, all those kinds of basic things. Yeah, they're more than adequate, more than capable of handling those kind of things. So if you're dealing with a tax person and you have a pretty simple tax return, you don't have any complicated deductions or anything like that, a general tax preparer is fine. And it's more than adequate. But if you own a business or you got specific deductions or a little more complicated, or you got multiple returns and all that, should you be dealing with somebody who specializes in those areas? Most definitely. So you should ask your tax person, what's your area of expertise? If you own a business or something, you need a business accountant or CPA. You just do. If not, you're probably missing out on some deductions and opportunities that could be perfectly legal and taken advantage of. That, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with clients where, they start investing, they start a real estate investment business or some other type of business and all that, and they stick with their original CPA when they just had a W-2 job, for example, and they had a very simple return. And then down the road, they get frustrated because, well, that CPA or that tax person isn't giving them the deductions that they're finding out that they could be taking advantage of. And what I tell them is, you got the wrong person. The person you had before was fine for what you needed, but your situation has changed, so you need to change advisor. See, that makes sense for people. And what I want you to understand is that holds true for the legal profession or the financial profession. You know, if you're working with somebody in the financial industry, you're in the markets and, you know, those types of things, and you have somebody who specializes in managed funds and various things like that, great. But when it comes to other types of planning, tax planning, succession planning, you want to have access to funds and create positive arbitrage and apply these kind of tools like your personal bank tool can do, things that bank boards often use and corporate finance boards and wealthy individuals use these tools commonly. By the way, they have specialists. I think most people understand that. That's when you need to consult some of those things, get some ideas from one of those specialists. And by the way, I work with a number of financial advisors as a consultant because I'm a specialist. One of the things I tell folks all the time is, look, if you're looking for the next big stock, I'm not your guy. One of the things way to identify somebody who is a specialist and expertise in the area is, well, obviously experience, but two, finding out what they don't do sometimes is even more important than what they do. Again, if somebody does everything, that's a generalist. They're good for the basics. But anything beyond that, maybe not so much. And again, this isn't a negative to anything. This is just smart advice for you to, help you move your financial situation forward. Okay? Maybe a little bit different perspective from somebody who's a specialist can help you take advantage of opportunities in situations that, frankly, you and your advisor wasn't aware of. I do this all the time. And like I said, I work as a consultant for a number of different financial advisors who bring me in as their personal bank or insurance specialist because they recognize, unfortunately, it's the minority. It's sad, but they recognize, just like the doctor, they're not a specialist in everything. So they bring me in, we work together, but I'm the consultant. And so this one article, it's from the Insurance Pro blog, and the title of the article is A Financial Planner's Insurance Advice Case Study. Very interesting. Said again, the Insurance Pro blog, by the way, is something, those of you that are interested, that's fine, great, you can check it out. But it's pretty technical. It's for folks that are pros in the insurance industry. But this one article is really appropriate because he talks about, this is a gentleman who is an insurance specialist. This is their focus, of course. And he's talking about how, an example of in a consultation where a CFP brought him in. Like he said, he points out here, most CFPs are not experienced or specialists in insurance. They may have an insurance license, but just because you have a license to sell a product doesn't mean in any way you're an expert or knowledgeable about that. I think Tuesday's show I shared, and I think earlier, just because you get a driver's license doesn't make you a expert driver. It just means you can legally drive a car on the road, okay? But we all know it takes years, many times, of experience to become an expert, okay? It's the same thing here. So he's using an example here. He goes into about, the level of understanding the typical financial advisor has on how these insurance tools can work and your personal bank tools can work. Frankly, in most cases, is very minimal. And there's a number of reasons behind it. I mean, one of them is, even though somebody may be a CFP or whatever, again, their focus is more about, most cases, market-related investments and assets, right? So that's where their level of expertise is. It's not that it's good or bad. The key is understanding, like he points out here, the moral of the story is that most financial planners are not financial planners. Okay? The thing is, what is it their area of expertise? And if you've never been if that person you've worked with or persons you've worked with over the years, over time, has never introduced your personal bank concept to you, and in most cases they don't. They're not a specialist. They don't fully understand how this can really impact your financial future. And it's worth it to yourself and your future to find out. So contact us at yourpersonalbank.com. We'll be happy to talk to you about it. And stay tuned. We'll talk about this more in the next segment.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. We're really talking about the reasons why, or what really I should say is, what's your advisor's area of expertise? And like I said, we can really apply this not just to the financial industry. This can be applied across the board to anyone that's really you're going to for advice or recommendations, whether it be tax advice, legal advice, or financial advice. And like I said, the analogy, which I think is a great one, is the medical field. We all know if you see the primary care physician and there's an issue that they're concerned about, they recommend you to a specialist because they recognize and admit that they're not, that's not their area of expertise, right? It's beyond their level, beyond their grade level. You know what I'm saying? Sadly, in the legal, tax, financial world, that's far less common. And I'm hopeful that becomes more common. I do work with some financial advisors as an insurance and personal bank consultant because they readily recognize and admit they're not expertise in that area, which is honest, and I respect that. But frankly, it's far the minority. Okay, and here's the thing you need to understand: when somebody says that you ask them, "What's your area of expertise?" By the way, it's one of the most powerful questions you can ask any advisor. To know what they specialize in, what they do. It's equally as important to understand what they don't do as what they do. I freely admit, and I tell people, look, I'm not a stock person. If you're looking for the next great stock pick, I don't pay attention to that stuff. That's not my area of expertise. I'm not your guy. What I'm more about is consistent, steady returns, guarantees, tax benefits, positive arbitrage on your money, having more money to spend throughout your lifetime, those kinds of things. There I am, your guy. So you really the question is, what are you looking for? And having just one advisor oftentimes is not the best route to go. It's, there's a lot of wisdom in having more than one because you can get a different perspective, different ideas. I started off in the show today. I meet with people, and it's very common, where we start to discuss their situation, ask questions what they want to accomplish, and I start brainstorming with them. Well, what if we did this? What if we reallocated there? What if we stopped this, started that? And the response I get almost invariably is, wow, I never thought about that. I never considered that. That was never brought to my attention. And that makes a lot of sense. In other words, you get a whole different perspective. And most cases, the vast majority of cases I work with on people is their financial position, situation, income, how much funds they have to spend increases, improves. I always say this all the time. You can make more money. We can show you how to increase your returns. I talked about that on Tuesday's show. Go to yourpersonalbank.com, check it out. How to increase your returns on your investments using your personal bank tool. Oftentimes, we're increasing people's rate of returns by 20 and 30%. Which is huge, folks. That's game-changing. If you make 10% return, now you get 12 or 13, that's huge. Also, we often show people how to we reallocate legally, ethically, how to pay less taxes, reduce their tax burden. Gosh, if you pay less in taxes, don't you have more money? Bottom line, isn't that what it's about? Having more money to spend? So you guess making more is important, so is spending less. One of the easiest ways to spend less is pay less tax, right? Do it legally. Do it the right way. We do this all the time with folks. Okay, so in this article that I was referring to, it's from the Insurance Pro blog. Like I said, pretty technical stuff, but this one article, it's a financial planner's insurance advice case study. And it really goes into, and he uses an example. This gentleman is a specialist like myself, where he was brought in by a CFP who readily admitted he was not an expert in insurance. In fact, didn't even hold a license in that arena. Many do. By the way, another article I refer to, and we posted on our website, talks about, look, if somebody has a license, doesn't mean they're an expert, okay? You can get a driver's license. You're 16 years old. Are you an expert driver? I think most people would agree not. Okay, so my point is, just because someone has a license doesn't mean anything. You really need to find out what their area of expertise is. But he used an example of a case where goes through the situation where he was brought in as the consultant to meet with the client, and he talks about the meeting where the CFP shared some information where basically the advisor gave a brief overview of the facts. The client apparently had set up a policy about 5 years prior, and what he was told was, this consultant, is the situation had changed, circumstances had changed, and needed to go a different direction to accomplish his goals. Okay. When he finding out he's a high-income earner and various things like that, well, that obviously immediately started bringing up some red flags, because the CFP was wanting to put him into some managed funds and various things like that. Clearly, he already had a tool that could generate tax-free growth and income for him in the future. And as a high-income earner, tax-free is really important for most high-income earner clients, right? So, like he said, he was on a meeting with this advisor who had never held a insurance license, yet he'd worked through the process of determining that this person didn't need it anymore. And as his point was, he goes, how is it with no experience or license, how could this advisor determine he didn't need this financial tool anymore? Like you said, the advisor appeared to know about as much about life insurance as I know about sewing quilts. And somehow he gains temporarily proficiency on the subject to recommend against it and move with something, forward with something else, obviously something the advisor could sell him. That's what I want you to understand. I'm not picking on anybody in particular. What we're trying to say is, look, if somebody doesn't deal with this personal bank stuff, doesn't deal with life insurance, doesn't deal with the tax-free income stuff on a regular basis, doesn't deal with positive arbitrage and setting up the bank line of credits to gain returns on money you spent or reallocated, or these are discussions, you're hearing things that you frankly probably haven't heard before. It's a different perspective. And that's what I get a lot from my Money Radio listeners. They're like, I've met with advisors for years, decades even, and yet I've never heard many of the things or the discussions or thoughts that you're sharing. It's because I'm coming at it from a different perspective. And I'm coming at it from a situation where instead of just looking at putting money at risk to grow our funds, which again, I'm not saying is a bad thing, that's something that many people do and should do. But there's also other concerns. There's other issues. There's other needs and goals that people have, including things like having some consistent, steady returns on some of their money. Modern portfolio theory, we talk about this all the time, talks about, as a rule of thumb, 60% equities, 40% bonds. Well, does it have to be bonds? It's not really about the bonds. If you look at it closer, it's really about having funds that are going to grow consistently and doesn't have the volatility of equities. And by the way, your personal bank, when you get a 6% dividend, consistent, steady, last 25 years plus, that satisfies that requirement and then some. And then you add on the other benefits where you can get living benefits that can handle major medical situations or long-term care. That's huge. You have the death benefit, can take care of premature, somebody passing. You take a couple, for example, and one passes away prematurely, you can have a situation where there's a loss of income often. Things like Social Security income that get reduced for the survivor. Having a death benefit in place can offset that. But the last thing is really the positive arbitrage. That's where you have the game-changing, in most cases, game-changing results or difference in terms of being able to earn money, earn interest on funds you've spent, funds you've allocated elsewhere. And whether it's used to pay off debt or invest in other things doesn't matter. Your money's still working for you. The question I ask all the time to everybody I meet with is, look, if you put your money in here and you put it in the Steady Eddie option and you get 6% dividends, what's your money doing? Well, basically it's growing 6%. Those funds are growing at 6% tax-free, aren't they? If we set it up right. And then if you want to access those funds through the bank line of credit using the cash and the policy as the collateral, and it costs you 3% to access those funds, you're earning 6 in the policy through the dividends, you're getting charged 3, what's your money still doing? It's growing. And if you grow money on money you spent, aren't you going to have more? That's what it's about. Contact us at yourpersonalbank.com. I'll be happy to talk to you about this and how this can enhance your financial future.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
All right, we're rounding third, and we're finishing this up. But I'll tell you what, today's show is really about empowering you. And what I mean by that is I'm going to give you the most powerful question you can ask any advisor to help you understand how well or not that person can help you. And again, it's not just about financial advisors. This is about tax advisors, legal advisors, you name it. And the question is this. It's really quite simple. So if you're just casually listening to the radio right now, I want you to just take 5 seconds, and I'm going to tell you, pay attention to this, because this will empower you more than anything else out there. This question, one simple question. And frankly, it's a question that many advisors of all types don't want to hear. But it helps you. And here's the question. What is your area of expertise? See, when I hire an attorney, that's the first question I always ask. Or I'm looking to hire an attorney because I have a legal situation. Most of us understand attorneys specialize in various areas of the law. The law is too complicated to be an expert in all of it. If you have a basic legal situation, can you hire a general practice attorney to handle it? Sure. If your tax return is pretty simple and you just have W-2 income or you just have retirement income and you don't have a whole lot of complicated deductions or anything like that, you pretty much a simple return. Can you hire an H&R Block or a general, an accountant, somebody's, to help you with your tax returns? Sure. Because your situation isn't all that complicated. You can apply that in the financial world. We all understand this in the medical world. We go see the primary care physician, for the regular checkups and get the cold or flu or, the basic things. Most of us understand the family practitioner can take care of those things. But when they're doing the checkup and they suspect something more serious, what's the doctor typically do? Refer you to a specialist, right? See, that's common in the medical industry. By the way, there's a number of reasons behind it, but the biggest one is the doc doesn't want to get sued. They're concerned about malpractice. And if they're a general practitioner, a family physician, and they start dealing with more complicated medical issues that they don't really have a level of expertise on, they could get sued and they know it. So they are built in. They have a network of referral specialists that they're going to refer their patients to. That's normal course of business. My hope is someday, we've seen a little bit of movement in this area, but my hope is someday the financial industry will work the same way as the medical and the legal, and by the way, tax too. I can't tell you how many times I run into clients who've had a tax accountant, CPA, or whoever, maybe they've had for years and decades even. And often their situation was one thing, and maybe they started a business or whatever, started investing, and their situation got more complicated. And I'm looking at their tax return and I start raising some red flags. Look, I'm not a tax preparer. I'm not a CPA. But I can recognize, because I've looked at so many tax returns over the decades, whether somebody's, taking advantage of legal deductions that are there or not. Plus, I've been a business owner for decades, owning several businesses, You get a feel for what's kind of normal course of business. And you start asking some questions like, you have this business, your investments, you do this and that. Why aren't I seeing some deductions or various things as a result? And they're like, well, we just did what our accountant told us to do. And the reality is, or they get frustrated themselves, they'll start talking to other business owners or investors or whatever and realize, wait a minute, maybe we're not taking advantage of some of the opportunities of tax deductions should be out there. I run into this all the time. and they get frustrated because their person isn't doing the job that they think they should do. And the reality is, and I tell them this, you've got the wrong person. Maybe they were good for what you needed before, but your situation's changed. It's more complicated now. You need a business CPA, for example, or one that focuses on real estate investing, or in other words, has that area of expertise to help you take advantage of the deductions that you rightly should be getting. Well, the financial industry is no different. And whether it's, again, the financial, legal, or whatever, if somebody tells you they're kind of understand everything, they're telling you they're a generalist. Because, folks, there's not enough hours in the day in the financial world or the tax world or the legal world or the medical world for someone to be expert in everything. Just, it's too vast. It's too complicated. There's too much to it. So if they tell you they're good at everything, it means they're a generalist. They're good for the basics, like your family practitioner is. You need to bring in the experts when you're dealing with things like we talk about here. You need to bring in a consultant. I do that for a number of CPAs. Actually CPAs, I do it for more than anybody. Some financial advisors who recognize they're not experts in this area, and they want to show somebody where they can enhance their returns on their monies or gain some tax benefits, increase their liquidity, have positive arbitrage, understand those benefits, but aren't experienced enough to be able to really put it together for that client in the best possible way. And this article I'm talking about, it's from the Insurance Pro blog. Again, it's kind of technical, but this article is actually really good, talking about a financial planner's insurance advice case study. This gentleman, he is like myself, a specialist, and this CPA brought him in to help with a client in terms of, giving him some advice on an index universal life policy that he had. Okay, and basically the financial advisor, CFP, was wanting to help unwind this, so to speak, so he take the funds and reallocate the funds to investment options because, as he put it, his circumstances have changed. The thing is, though, this client had started a tool that would create a tax-free income for him down the road, and he was a high income earner. So right off the bat, the tax benefits were very important for the client, not so much for the advisor. And so you can read this if you want. We'll check it out. We'll post it on our website at yourpersonalbank.com. He goes through the process, and he was very nice and professional about it. But like he pointed out is, he decided that the client, he goes, I had to admit I had some suspicious about the claim the circumstances had changed, and the client decided he needed to head in a different direction. It was really more about the advisor wanted him to head in a different direction because the tool he had actually was a very good tool. It was one that could create positive arbitrage. It could create tax-free income. It had potential significant returns and actually had done very well the previous 5 years. So again, this is a situation of where it just wasn't in this financial advisor's area of expertise. And because it was outside of his normal course of business, he was keen on not recommending it, in fact, keen on changing it. That's where his comfort level was. So my point is, having more than one advisor can often make a lot of sense, and for no other reason to get a different perspective on things. And like I said, if you have not been introduced to this personal bank concept, or you haven't looked into it particularly recently, because there's been a lot of changes in the last couple of years, there are improvements, because that's the number one question I get all the time. Why haven't I been introduced to this? This is, once they recognize what it can do, they're like, oh my gosh, I wish I'd known about this sooner. Why wasn't I introduced to this concept? Well, the person you're talking to is just not their area of expertise. So it behooves you to at least take a look. Consider how this could impact your financial future, improve your financial situation, improve your returns, enhance your returns, reduce your taxes. How about earning interest on money you spent? Have you ever thought about that? Do you realize what that could do for you long term in terms of having more money to spend in your lifetime? And frankly, most importantly, probably in retirement? Because doesn't that then help address the number one fear that retirees have, and study after study after study shows this. Number one concern is running out of money before you run out of time, right? If you're earning interest on money you spend on your normal course of expenses or debts or bills or anything like that, that means you've got more money to spend, don't you? It's worth looking into. Contact us at yourpersonalbank.com. I'll be happy to discuss this with you, answer any questions you have, get more information. Hey, if you just want me to cover a question you may have on the radio, put it out there. Be happy to cover it. Love to talk to you. And stay tuned every Tuesday at noon and Thursday at 1 for the Your Personal Bank Show.
Listen Tuesday at noon and Thursdays at 1 for more information on Your Personal Bank. Contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may charge. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.